The first change to look at with Zamasu is to his standing medium attack and its delay. Previously, it was -5 on block, so a safe staggered tool for Zamasu to use, but one where you couldn't really reliably get a dash block afterwards against a 6-frame jab. At least not as far as a human is concerned. Let's check out the new recovery on standing medium attack. It's now at -2 on block, so even though functionally it doesn't really change Zamasu's stagger pressure because it's still safe and it was safe before, it should mean that you might be able to actually buffer up some dash blocks against the opponent's mash easier. Of course, it's still a bit tricky to time, but as you can see right there where you have the dust cloud kicking up behind Zamasu, it's certainly more possible than it was before. The next change to Zamasu is to his crouching medium attack, where they sped up the attack startup. Previously, it was an 11-frame low. Let's see crouching medium's new startup. It's now frame 10 instead of frame 11, so it's a 1-frame difference. This really shouldn't open up new mix-up opportunities for Zamasu, since you need about like an 8 or 9 frame low in order for this to be true super dash high-low mix-ups. But what it does also mean is that there could be some new combo routes that Zamasu is able to do, or some routes might be a little bit easier when you're linking into this normal. And again, that's namely going to be coming up in his Wall of Light combos. And again, we'll explore those later. Now let's take a look at standing heavy attack for Zamasu. Previously, while the normal had some decent range to it, it wasn't as like gifted as some other normals. You can cross the screen with 2 full uses of the move, but as you can just tell, you didn't actually hit the opponent on the second one. This generally made it a really good anti-reflect proof string option for Zamasu to use, but not really something that you would, press in neutral. Now let's take a look at the new distance standing heavy attack travels. 2 uses, and you basically are able to touch the opponent from full screen. This also means that at ranges like this, you're actually able to threaten an 18-frame normal attack against the opponent. This could be pretty nice for Zamasu's ground neutral, just giving him an option to sort of attack the opponent with at some decent ranges, while also meaning that it's going to have less fringe cases where an opponent's reflect could cause this to whiff. So Zamasu should pretty much always be getting in if he uses this in a block string. The next normal to look at is Zamasu's standing unique attack. Previously, it was a -4 on block option at point blank range. And at full screen, it was +5, which is pretty standard for Ki Blast. Now, let's also talk about the fact that, up until this point, it was a single-use Ki Blast. Zamasu couldn't fire multiple Ki Blasts within his block strings or in his zoning. So this meant that, once you saw him use the one Ki Blast, you basically didn't have to worry about it coming out anymore. Additionally, it also meant that for him to confirm his zoning, he would be a little bit hard-pressed to in some situations. So it was a little cumbersome for him to actually be able to use it. And I can remember when the character was first released and in a much weaker state than he is now, that people were clamoring for letting him shoot more than just one Ki Blast. So let's take a look at 5S's new properties. Now, it's 2 frames faster to recover, so instead of being -4, it's -2, which, again, is a bit of a nice buff for Zamasu, meaning that he can incorporate dash blocks in his stagger pressure. However, the more important change here is the fact that now it can be performed again in a Z combo, and it can be performed up to 3 times per combo. So now, all of a sudden, Zamasu here has multiple Ki Blast zoning. And if we take a look at this on hit, they do actually all combo together, meaning that Zamasu is able to, fire out a couple of Ki Blasts, zone the opponent, and then actually have a reasonable opportunity to hit confirm this, and we'll explore some new confirms that could be possible with later changes. Now let's take a look at Eternal Justice. The light version, when used in his medium auto combo, has some increased hit stun time. So let's take a look at what it used to do. Mid-screen, you didn't really get much. And in the corner, while you did get a wall bounce, there really wasn't anything that you could do with this. Now let's take a look at the increased stun time during medium auto combo on Eternal Justice. As you might be able to tell, it's already substantially longer. When you do this in the corner, Now the dummy also is able to fall right behind Zamasu, meaning you're able to link a 2M, and I wouldn't be surprised if 2M's 1 frame faster startup was done so that you could get this link. Maybe someone who is able to do a deeper analysis into frame data could tell us if that would have been able to work if 2M remained an 11-frame normal, but that's going to be beyond my interest for analysis here. I simply wanted to bring up the idea of why they buffed 2M like this. The medium version of Eternal Justice also has a buff to it. Previously, it didn't quite go full screen, meaning that Zamasu didn't really have a lariat that would reach this far. If you wanted to have any of your lariats reach, you had to get just a little bit closer than full screen. So how much farther does Eternal Justice's medium version go now? Well, it's a full screen option now, which pairs nicely with his Ki Blast change. Now Zamasu has a way to convert full screen Ki Blast hits into a sliding knockdown. Obviously, you're not really going to get much more off of this unless you utilize some fast assists or if you go for a vanish. But this is nice simply because it means that Zamasu doesn't have to just convert from Ki Blast damage into a vanish and then scale his combo and meter build. He can build a little bit more bar, add on a little bit more damage, and then do his vanish, which is a buff to his full screen zoning. Now let's talk about Wall of Light, which has a couple of changes occurring within this version of Dragon Ball FighterZ. So previously, they actually changed Wall of Light's timing across all versions, which affected a lot of Zamasu's combo routes. The light version used to fire them staggered off like this. The medium version had a longer delay and then fired it off in a staggered pattern. And then the EX version would basically repeat the light and the medium version's timings. Now, all this was well and fine, but there was so much combo tech that existed with Zamasu before with his old timings that basically became outdated because of how they affected the combo routes, thanks to the change that they made to it. And Zamasu players had to restructure a lot of their bread and butters that incorporated Wall of Light into them. And it seems like Bandai wants to give us the best of both worlds. Now, Wall of Light has 3 different versions with each variation of the move that you can perform, because now if you hold up or down during the move, you get different timings for each direction. So let's go ahead and remind ourselves of that normal timing. This is the light version of the move. So it attacks, one blast and then another. If I hold down during the move, both Ki Blasts fire, which is pretty much the old behavior of Wall of Light. In addition to that, holding up adds a bigger delay between the 2 Ki Blasts being fired. So now let's check out the medium version. Without any inputs, it's that long delay before you get the staggered firing. If I hold down, it's that long delay before both attacks fire. And if I hold up, again, it's that bigger stagger between both of the blasts firing. And the same sort of behavior can be true for the EX version as well. So without any inputs, you get the light version timing of the staggered fire and then the medium version timing. And then, if I hold down, I get the first volley that fires simultaneously, and then the second volley that fires. And then, of course, if I hold up, you get like this almost rhythmic sort of staggered firing across all 4 attacks. Again, kind of like emulating the light and the medium version timing. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same timing. I know I referred to that earlier, but we're going to have to refer to some more Zamasu experienced players in order to really break that one down. But basically because of this, all of the old combos that Zamasu had with Wall of Light are now back in the game because you got the simultaneous fire version that used to be here. You have the newer old version, I should say, of Wall of Light, and you have another version of Wall of Light for Zamasu to combo off of. Because of this, there's a lot of things that you can do with Zamasu's combo theory, and we might as well go ahead and check that out now. Now let's take a look at Heaven's Flash. They reduced the amount of time that you can float in mid-air. So the best way to actually demonstrate this is to put the 2 versions side by side. Now, obviously, this is namely a nerf to Zamasu's keep away game, since most of the time Zamasu combos don't last long enough for this change to matter when he's using Heaven's Flash to extend his combo reach. But it should mean that instead of Zamasu being able to float around forever, playing keep away against some characters where if they had a very difficult time approaching him, like Master Roshi, for example, then Zamasu players could start to play for a time and camp out the clock. Not as bad as like some other games out there or some other instances, but, you know, certainly it was an annoying situation when it did come up, and it's kind of nice to see that this nerf come through. Dragon Ball FighterZ game already take long enough as it is without somebody trying to camp out the clock, and Zamasu was probably the best character to do that. So I'm pretty okay with this nerf for Zamasu. It doesn't really affect the core game plan of the character. It just sort of takes off like the strength of an edge case use for him. Now let's look at the two other changes to Heaven Flash. Previously, if you try to use the dash macro, which is pressing forward and then the super dash macro, or just heavy and unique, then you wouldn't actually get your dash out of Heaven's Flash. Instead, you get your special moves instead. Additionally, if you go ahead and use a dash, then you would be able to dash once, but then you would have to recover from that dash before you'd actually be able to execute another Heaven's Flash dash. Now, we should take a look at how they've adjusted the behaviors of the Heaven's Flash dash. You can now perform them by using the Super Dash macro, and it will work in the reverse direction. There's also another change where you can actually dash again during your initial dash. And it works forward and backwards. However, one thing to note is that you can't change directions. If you try to do that, well, then you're not going to get the dash canceled through here. And there's quite a couple of implications for this, both in terms of Zamasu's neutral as well as his combo game. And since now we've looked at pretty much everything regarding Zamasu in this patch, I feel like now is the appropriate time to go to Twitter and look at various implications of all this new tech. Now, one result of the change to allowing you to do multiple dashes from your Heaven's Flight stance is going to be with its interactions regarding Super Dash. So previously, if you were to react to Super Dash, right, with, your dash, you could block a Super Dash, but you could also just retreat like this in order to make sure that you had time to block it. You could warp forward to cause it to whiff, but now you can actually go backwards. And if your timing is, like, really good, there are definitely some situations where you can still get caught. But you can do things like this and cause Super Dash to whiff, and creating situations like this. I actually was able to remember, but I couldn't find the clip, unfortunately, of, like, you're able to, like, punish Super Dashes, basically, with this change. But, you can definitely create, like, these situations where you're causing the opponent to fly, miss Zamasu, and then good luck fighting that, So this will give Zamasu some new patterns and new ways in which he can maneuver around the screen, as well as interact with things like Super Dash, and I wanted to highlight that briefly. Now, there's actually a lot to look at with Zamasu and these changes, and they come from all over the place, because of his 2M changes, because of the orb changes, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and try and go through some of this stuff. Patify has been a pretty good source on Twitter, where you can actually see that Zamasu is able to combo into 2M off of his JSJH rejump. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So that's an example of some new Zamasu combo routing that you can do thanks to the change to his 2M. That one frame does make a difference right here, it would seem. Now it's also possible with the new orbs, which I think Patify is referring to the up orbs, but we'll take a look at this in the clip. You can do stuff like this. You can connect a single JS into flight down M because the second orb connects after your JS. So let's take a look at this combo next. So you get like that bigger delay off of some of these here. And there's that like kind of new stagger timing in here, I can tell with the orbs, so I believe this is the up orbs. Pretty decent damage here for Zamasu, and again, you got new toys to play with for Zamasu in this patch, while also preserving and returning some of his older toys, which I do like. There's also, with this change, I know that in the previous patch, one big thing for Zamasu was apparently he could not do multiple EX orbs in a single combo. I think that was a bug that was accidentally introduced, and they've since fixed it in patch 1.40/1.41. So now you can do things like this again, and Saturn flex this combo. First set of EX orbs.
Moment of truth. Let's go.
And there's the second orb.
They're back, bro. We are so back.
So I'm not sure if this was like a bug with Zamasu or if this was just a consequence of the old behavior that Zamasu had with, since you had the old staggered timing for the orbs previously, that, Zamasu just wouldn't be able to have the orb special wear off in time for him to actually weave it into a combo. But now that you can do like the old timings with the simultaneous firing orbs, all the double orb combo routes that you could do before are now back in the game, which is nice. Looking at a cool guy on Twitter as well, which, hey, shout outs again, cool guy. He shouted out like this particular link that you can perform. That is very loud, even with like no volume. So you can do things like this with Zamasu, thanks to like the staggered delay timing on orbs. Actually, like having your orb stop the smash hit of 2H launching is actually kind of sick, taking advantage of that delayed timing. Agni Kai has a demonstration here of the medium combo wall bounce, and how you can use it. So I demonstrated that you could, side swap out of the corner, but you could actually backdash and force the opponent back into the corner as well. And it's not too bad damage, I would say, about 1.5 bars a meter. Other characters are certainly doing more damage, but I kind of always felt like Zamasu's big damage has been concentrated around using his Wall of Light, as well as his Blades of Judgment. So if he was able to do higher damage without those resources, then he would be incredibly strong in his combo game. Saturn has yet another combo example of using multiple orbs. So you can do something like this. Set up the EX orbs, and you can see how all that strings together. Anyone I'm showcasing here on Twitter is basically a really good resource for y'all to go check out to find your combo games with it. However, there is also a bug that was introduced in 1.40/1.41. Now, we also have to look at this real quick. Let's see here. If you whiff, or if it's blocked, then the tracking returns no. But there is a tracking bug that does occur in combo routes with Zamasu. And hopefully this is something that gets addressed in the upcoming patch that Bandai announced. But I'm going to let Reverie here explain the warp bug real quick.
Hello, I'm here today to talk about a bug and raise awareness for a bug that has existed for a very long time. I don't remember the version number, but ever since Zamasu got this move, his Flight Dash, or otherwise colloquially known as Heaven's Warp, this bug changes the properties of this warp whenever you use this move, Flight Success. I'll reset training mode here, and you'll notice after this move, the warp, Zamasu appears quite quickly, right? Almost immediately. However, if I use F-Success Warp, the warp there was significantly delayed. Of course, off of this move, that makes sense because you need to account for the wall bounce so that Zamasu can still combo. Unfortunately, the properties of this warp change permanently. You can see now that Zamasu warps significantly slower, and there is no way to revert this. Warping on whiff doesn't work. This is still different. Using back warp doesn't work. This is still different. The only way to change this warp is to use the smashless version of F-Success, which also changes the properties of the warp. Now, Zamasu warps a lot higher than he used to, again, to account for the pop-up of smashless F-Success. But unfortunately, this messes with his combos in a huge way. This Blades of Judgment Ender, which is our best Ender for high hit stun decay scenarios, is completely ruined by both versions of the warp storage. So we are completely unable to use this Ender after using F-Success Warp a single time in a match. Again, literally nothing I can think of fixes this problem. If you find a way to fix it, let me know. That would be huge. But the only way I've found to fix this has been to reset training mode, and that obviously sucks because a lot of damage is lost behind this, and frankly, it's just, like, weird. Like, this property should only apply to specifically F-Success Warp. Arxis, You've been very receptive to feedback recently. Please, please, please fix that.
So that's like a quick detailed explanation of the bug, which does have some other use cases, but according to this Twitter post right here, Kayokek, and looking at this one, note if you're using 6S here, if you whiff J236S or if it's blocked, then the tracking returns to normal. So yeah, they affect all these properties here. So you just have to do jump 236S in order to, avoid these properties. Your shortcuts, if you're using 6S in Warp, are going to be a bit bugged. But yeah, so this is something just to be aware of. Hopefully this is able to get addressed so that you can use the 6S version. But as you can see right here, this will change up some stuff. There are some applications, like I believe this is the clip, actually. So you can do like the full combo right here. And then, this is the 6M and then S warp. So whiffing this, and then all of a sudden Zamasu just tracks you here. So then you're actually able to just warp suddenly behind them and get Oki. It should not track like this. This is a bug, but it's something that you can use, I guess. I imagine that this hopefully is getting fixed. I mean, we simply just don't know until Bandai announces more details on the patch. But let's continue marching on with some other particular tech. Again, if you're using Flight 236L SDR, it can't be used after using the tracking properties. So Moonchild here shouting this out. So we're starting with this. There's some music here, so let me mute that real quick. You get this. So this is how it's supposed to behave, right? But now if you do something akin to this, and you get this tracking where you're able to cross up, and you have this new tracking. Rejump into 5M, you can now do 2M there. And you get this sequence right here, right? When you have the warp bug. Then you can see the inputs right here. DR actually didn't come out because Zamasu has that warped bug on him, so he's actually recovering later. I think it's doing that later warp that Reverie talked about. So this is something for you to be aware of when you're combo routing. So if you're having issues like this pop up, it is because Zamasu does have a bug with him right now. This was published on November 5th, so I'm pretty sure this is after the patch. There was another bug with Zamasu with like his Eternal Justice's hit stun where it was like stupid high, and they did address that. So I just want to make you aware of that. And you also have, last thing to showcase, is some combo route stuff like this going into mid-screen corner. 2M linking there, of course. And you can do some fancy leaks like this. And that will all work just fine. But yeah, that's kind of like the tech showcase I wanted to do for Zamasu here for y'all. A lot of combo routes for you to explore. There is a bug you need to be aware of. There does seem to be some ways to get around it. But, again, hopefully Bandai and or Arc System Works, whoever is namely in charge of actually working on the patches right now. I know it's Bandai's call, but I don't know if it's their employees or Arc System employees at this point in time. Hopefully that bug gets addressed in the next version of the game, but I wanted to make you all aware of some of the tech that you could do with Zamasu. Now let's get into Zamasu's A and B assist changes. Previously, only the fireball portion of his A assist would actually make contact with the opponent. So if you're at point blank range, it was just, a 34 frame startup option for you. Now let's take a look at how the A assist behaves when the strike portion of the attack hits. It's 2 frames faster up close, giving you a little bit of more reliability at close range, but also you're going to note how much more substantial it is on block. 46 frames of block stun here is actually quite nice. In addition to that, it's now 2 full hits. So there's a lot more hits done as well, and honestly, this is a pretty nice buff for Heaven's Flash overall. It's got a good full screen playstyle that's going to be identical, but up close, you get additional properties. And again, if you're a character that needs something like, 35 frames of block stun or something like that, now you got 46 to work with, which can pretty much open up a lot of mix-up opportunities off of particular EX moves. Cell's Perfect Attack comes to mind, where now you can get a gapless high-low off of this, and that could mean that Zamasu and Cell are good partners. There might be some other examples of this, of course, but A Assist actually has some pretty decent lockdown now. As for his B Assist, they've increased the distance that the attack moves. It's a fairly serviceable Lariat-style assist, however, it was fairly stubby. with Zamasu basically appearing right next to your character and barely covering some space in front of him, making it only viable at close ranges. So how much farther does B assist now go? Substantially far. While it's not full screen, nor do you want it to be full screen. After all, if you want a full screen assist, you should be playing as A or a C assist instead. But if you get just a little bit closer than that, Zamasu will actually reach out with some pretty decent range, which should be more comparable to other Lariat-style assists. This is, of course, a buff to Zamasu's neutral game when you use his B assist, because now there's just more ranges where it's an effective assist that actually controls space. Not only that, but there could be some new ranges where you can get better links into it, or actually just be able to link into it at all off of your combo game, meaning that it's going to be better in your combos as well. It's a pretty nice buff, and I think that at this point, with the changes to A assist as well as this buff to B assist, all three versions of Zamasu's assists are viable choices for you. It just depends on what you're looking for in your team composition. There's a lot of nice things going on with Zamasu in this patch. Unfortunately, they have been marred by bugs. There was the bug to the Eternal Justice hit stun, where you could basically just spam that move over and over again, and it was doing TODs. They since fixed that, thankfully, in patch 1.41, but the flight warp bug is certainly something that you have to be aware of and plan around. I hope I was able to highlight other people who know way more about it than me and give you some solutions or workarounds to it, while hopefully Bandai and or Arc System Works are able to address it. They haven't said that they would, but we're hoping that they do, since they've already done one bug fix patch. Probably not too far out of reasoning then to assume or hope that they are going to address this bug. Overall, some really good changes for Zamasu. It doesn't really shift the character up tier lists or anything. I'm pretty sure he's close to the same power level that he was in the previous patch. His zoning is better thanks to the buffs to standing unique attack, but it also means his stagger pressure is better because now he can do Key Blast, Heavy, Key Blast in his stagger pressure, just to give him more cancel options to keep his stagger game going for longer, which I think is good. And the fact that they've basically given us the old version of Wall of Light to re-enable a whole bunch of old Zamasu tech was really smart, while giving us yet another version. So now you got 3 versions of Wall of Light to play around. It's a change that I like. It's not one where it's just, hey, let's take away everything that people have built up before, but let's also just give them new toys to play with. And I very much do like that change. So if you're a Zamasu player, you should be enjoying this patch outside of the bugs that do exist. I don't really think that any of the changes here would inspire people to pick up Zamasu. I mean, they're not as flashy or as meta shifting as other character changes have been in this patch, but I still think it's a patch that tried and true Zamasu mains can enjoy. There's a little more support value from his assists. He gets just, better pressure like I talked about. All of his old tech is back. So I ultimately think that Zamasu does benefit a bit from this patch, and, hey, if you want to check out Zamasu for any of these changes, let us know in the comments down below.